Yeah, I've got a really juicy pinnacle teaching in some ways, and something I wanted to offer you, just a very clear binary choice for parents facing GCSEs. Option one, pushing. I've seen so many parents since the early days of my tutoring in London, even more intimately in the last 5 years as a parent coach and running the Young Fire Academy, a 12-week, and now it's a 24-week program for teens and parents. I've been really closely on the journey with many parents who are in your position now. If you do have a child who's in years 9 to 11, it's a real temptation, I would say, a real temptation for certain parents, perhaps all of us. I mean, I think I can put my hand up for this, thinking that the solution is just to, like, in a way, double down on your kids. Like, but I don't mean that just in a really sort of aggressive or over the top obvious way, but just pushing in so many different ways. In a way, it's an extension of our systems of command and control, which is kind of the old management system. If you've listened to me enough, you'll probably know that this is how the working world has been set up to date, and many companies now innovating in that way with more trust and in the heart of their organizations. And it's certainly the way our education systems are still set up. We lean towards those ways of just trying to get the job done, but to our peril. So really, hand on heart, I've just seen I've seen parents bottle it, basically, just to, like, fluff the lines, or just flinch and just go, okay, I'm just gonna, I'll book up loads of tutoring. I'm just gonna, like, lock them down to, like, an hour or two every day, and I'm gonna stand over them, or whatever it is. I'm gonna monitor them really heavily. No devices, which can be a good move, actually. No devices. This kind of way of just, like, enforcing them to do it. Well, for one thing, it cannot be done. Literally cannot be done. When you're talking about learning, when we're talking about a student revising for exams, wow, that is not learning. Learning will not be done in that atmosphere. There will also be dodging you. The amount of times I've heard from parents say, my daughter or my son says that they're in their room, but every time I go in there, they're on YouTube. You'll end up in a system that I've been part of also as a tutor, which is why I've moved away from that, where you're just you're part of the system. You're part of the adult world, trying to get kids to do stuff they don't want to do, or they haven't chosen to do, or you haven't got their buy-in yet. And so they're just game playing you. You cannot put information, even if you put a teacher in front of someone for hours and hours and hours, you can't control where their mind is at. So if they're not really focused on it, if you haven't got their buy-in, if you haven't done the work that we do in the program, actually, with the teens, going through all of the mindset around it. What's the purpose? What's the point? Why should they get stuck in? They're not going to respond well to that approach. 99% of, I'd say all of them. So yeah, even in terms of the grades that you'll get at the other end, I don't think much improvement comes from that. You might notch them up through years of agony, by the way, and with very short-term thinking, you might achieve or think you've achieved something. The problem is the short-term thinking, because even if you survive GCSEs, what's the ultimate result then for A levels, for the rest of life? What's the cost? So yeah, this is the kind of hoop jumping system that we've got into, and we just go, okay, we'll just get them through these mocks, we'll just get them through these GCSEs, or maybe it starts earlier on, 11 plus if you're in the private school system. And it's really an empty process. Wow, the emptiness in that process, the lack of actual love of learning or any real learning of any value. It just becomes a process of just ticking boxes. You're draining energy constantly, everybody in the family, if you're in that role as a parent. You can't stuff the information in, grinding it out. It's a horrible way to go. So yeah, I think you're probably clear on my perspective and my point there. My work is to do with, like, intrinsic motivation, real life confidence, self-direction in school, out of school, and then in life, meaningful life work, aligning with their own strengths, gifts, and talents. These are the things that are just being trodden all over when you go with the pushing approach. So the costs immediately will be with their A levels. They'll get to A levels, or they'll get to sixth form college, BTECs, whatever it is they're lining up for, and they're not going to know how to navigate this stuff. GCSEs is a huge opportunity to step up. And you have to leave them to it. You actually have to leave your child to realize that this is an opportunity. And even some of the students I've worked with have said, wow, I realized too late but then they've realized, so they realized they got, okay, they did their revision a bit late for GCSEs, but wow, they know that. They're like, oh, I could have got down to it a bit earlier. And of course, there could always be earlier. So don't take that the wrong way. They all did their revision in their own way. They know now. So they're like, okay, they've got that learning. They've taken that profound lesson from the process. They haven't just kind of been forced through it and learned nothing. They know, okay, the next exam that comes around, I've got to like pull my finger out a week before if it's a little test, or I've got to pull my finger out months before if it's A-levels themselves. So there's huge learning there, and like not doing brilliantly or as brilliant as they possibly could in GCSEs isn't the ultimate aim. It really isn't. No one even remembers GCSEs once you've done A-levels. It's a journey, not a destination. You cannot look at GCSEs as the be-all and end-all and override these fundamental goals: motivation, confidence, well-being, self-esteem, family harmony, your relationships from now and into the future. So, this can be sowing the seeds of family disharmony and lack of trust for years. I mean, this can really go very badly wrong. And the opposite is true. Whilst this is a perilous route in some ways, it's so full of opportunity. It's so full of potential empowerment for everyone in the family. You can end up, the last few things on my list of the negatives, the cost is that you end up with someone who hates learning, or like just is dead against kind of everything. So then again, they trail that through university. They're just generally just like, oh, this is just more of the same. They haven't learnt to own it. And so that creates a lot of confusion around what they're doing with their lives in their educational years and beyond. The other option is, boom, letting go. The boat is your child. They're just driving forward with like irresistible power, unstoppable power, natural, clean, pure, wind energy, that kind of thing. They've got the wind in their sails. It's a great metaphor. It's the opposite of the parent pushing it, the micromanaging, nagging, pressurizing, the parent control kind of approach. This is like releasing them in year 9, year 10, even in year 11. Definitely there's no time like the present to access the real gold of GCSEs, which is to let them go, let them run at it themselves with full support. So yeah, don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean like, hey, just good luck, leave them to it, let them just kind of game for 2 years. But, it might look a bit like that, even when you're doing all the right elements of support, you're checking in with them, you're handing over, you're making it clear to them kind of what the consequences in some ways will be. And then you're stepping back, leaving them to it, letting the school also do their job, which is to inspire them to also keep up with their own potential to get the most out of it. Yeah, the letting go approach is like instant relief for everybody. But, some hand-holding of the parents is needed sometimes in this case, hence the program. And also a lot of work is also needed with the teens, the mindset stuff around what's the point, why should I? There's a lot of rebuilding of trust sometimes needed with young people who've been in this very coercive system, schooling and possibly at home as well, in subtle ways. I would put my hand up for that as a parent. I've got a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. I know that some of my tendencies lean in that way, but of course this is my work, so I'm vividly aware of it. Yeah, this is what we do. We just make sure that this process over 6 months is really well held with the parent and with the teen. So it's really, the letting go is opening up and giving space and time for your own child to discover their own drive. We want like a full family immersion where the parents are stepping back and the teens are able to step up. And the more you jump in like that, the better it works. The more you genuinely hand over, draw a line, and have those conversations where you're like, okay, I'm sorry for being dominating and domineering, and I'm not going to do that anymore. Making a commitment, drawing a line, having that conversation where you go, I'm done. That doesn't work for me. I can see that doesn't work for you. How should we do it going forward? It's actually getting out the way of all of the goals that you really want for them. What are they going to be like when they're 25? How are these years feeding the ultimate goal of raising a child, a successful, happy, successful in the broadest sense, happy, motivated, confident, balanced, someone who knows what they're about, knows what they want to do in life. They've aligned their loves and interests and passions with their future life work.